money is freedom. Freedom and money is choice. And that's kind of the piece. But there are a lot of people that have sleepless nights. And
I agree with that, for sure.
And they really struggle with the conversation with their partner, or their family for that matter, right? Because of things that they've experienced. Different generations experience money differently.
Wake up, it's time to rise. Talking money with sharp insight. Jim and Ryan here to guide. Mastering the money ride. Saving stacks and planning dreams. Living large by honest means. Tune in now for the schemes. Breaking down financial themes. Money mindset every day. Mastering.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the Money Mindset Mastery podcast. I'm your host, Jim, and joining me today, as always, is my Penguins fan, Ryan Genoe. How are you doing, Ryan?
Broken Penguins fan, not in the playoffs yet this year. I'm doing well, and I'm excited about this topic because it happens so often, especially in our coaching sessions. And lots of clients always have these kind of one-off conversations with me, which inspired me to write the blog. And one of the biggest things, it's a blog to really kind of balance different ideas. And I really used, like I said, I've used clients and clients' ideas of, clients that are successful, clients that have really struggled, and put together a bunch of the ideas to really help people really talk to their partner about money and having the financial conversations. As we've talked about on our podcast, money often leads to one of the number one reasons why people separate in couples and marriage, and how to discuss finances with your partner without the drama. There's no drama llamas in this podcast, only ideas and solutions. So,
Right. So what you're saying is we're not talking about tariffs. We're not talking about the stock market crash. I think today was another bit of a bloodbath. The last couple of episodes, we have been talking about those things. So if you are interested in those topics, I encourage you to search some of our YouTube videos and podcast episodes and blog posts that we've been talking about those things over the last 2 to 4 weeks or so. But no, today, as Ryan, you mentioned, we're going to talk about mastering money talks, how to discuss finances with your partner without drama. So without drama part, I'm really intrigued by that. You wrote this blog post, so we're going to be posting that later on in the week as well for people who like to read blog posts. And what I'll say, Ryan, is I read the blog post, and I say I agree with like 98% of what you wrote. So I do encourage people to go out there and take a look at it, or to read it. But there's a part of it that I disagree with, and I didn't discuss this with you. So I'd like to get your take on it. And it's literally in the first sentence of the intro, which is money, it's the root of all evil. And I'm not a believer of that, and I know people are. We have had many episodes where we talk about some of the challenges that people have with money, and it's usually rooted in trauma, right, that they've experienced in their younger years or early years. So you and I have talked many times about the psychology behind money, and trauma being one of the driving reasons behind how people make poor decisions. And I just feel that in this blog post, starting it off with that line,
it got you engaged a bit, which is awesome. So
it did, and I'm like, we're contributing to that trauma, right? So maybe explain yourself with that first line, and then we'll get into the rest of the blog post.
Well, again, the first line is, again, talking with a lot of clients. That's what people see as money, and we've tried to debunk that. I've written articles on it. We've talked about it in our podcast, really about like stop talking to money as an evil thing. And I think that's what the idea is, that we're trying to crash the idea, and by continuously, and you just said it, maybe I should have used something differently, because we're trying to debunk this money is evil thing by continuing to say that it's evil. Therefore, people continue to believe that it's evil, and therefore it is not. Money is freedom, right? Freedom and money is choice. And that's kind of the piece. But there are a lot of people that have sleepless nights. And
I agree with that for sure. Yeah.
and they really struggle with the conversation with their partner, or their family for that matter, right? Because of things that they've experienced. Different generations experience money differently, and what we pass on to our children and how we think about money, whether they understand cash flow and budgeting for smaller and short-term goals. That is part of the dialogue that we want to continue to create. And you know, whatever partner you have, it's about being comfortable to sit down. And again, I took these formulas from our clients. I took these formulas from talking conversations with you, with friends and family members that have seen success, and know that there's a lot of bloggers and podcasters that will say, I can think of one gentleman in particular that is always like, my way is the only way,
Right.
right? I'm not going to mention that person's name, but and
We don't want to get
it
sued.
it bothers me so much, right? And that through this, hopefully you can piece together something that will allow you and your partner, you and your family, to start the dialogue without getting the sweats, the night sweats, um, and also at the same time not attacking each other, because you have to understand where somebody comes from before you can kind of move forward with that. And again, as I say to my son, we need to be able to find a way to talk with kindness to each other, and also understand where they've come from. So,
And one way of doing that is by them taking our money mindset quiz, right?
absolutely, yeah,
So if you go to our website, tvhfinancial.ca, there is a money mindset quiz, and it'll actually help identify kind of like your thought process, how you handle money, based on your experiences, your upbringing, your personality. And we encourage people to share the results with their partner, because there might be some drastic differences between the two, right? So you're right. One of the issues is lack of understanding of how people, your partner may view money. So I'm glad we got through that, because I thought that was the elephant in the room, was that first line, but that isn't the elephant in the room. So what is the elephant in the room, Ryan?
well, the elephant in the room is finding a space that you feel like you can have this dialogue without the other person melting down, right? And again, as we kind of go through that piece, the elephant in the room, it really is talking about money, how each other spends money or saves money, how each other thinks and acts around money, and really the avoidance of this topic about money, and that we just shove it under the rug or not discuss it until one day it either blows up in your face with $63,000 debt, which is what the average Canadian holds.
Is that what it is now?
Yeah.
So that's gone
So
up. That's gone
yeah.
up.
So or that it ends in divorce, and if anybody knows the cost of divorce, that can be quite expensive too. So we're here to save you money in both ways, which is like, let's introduce ideas and tactics to help bring it. Again, I would like to say that in the coaching that we do, that I've done with clients, it's being, it's really, again, I will repeat this, it's about being kind to each other to make sure that you find the right words. It's not a he said, she said, or whatever your partner is, but it's simply saying, this is what my feeling is around money, instead of pointing at the other person and saying, well, you do this and you do that. It's working through some of this. So again, I'm using examples and ideas that a lot of clients have shared with me that have really worked for them to kind of break down and help simplify this very awkward conversation of the pink elephant standing in the room across the corner. Oh, look, it is. It's over there. So,
You know, and this might be in our outline at some point. But I want to touch on this as I'm thinking about it. What I have found with couples is sometimes they will say that they are a team when it comes to their finances, but when you kind of dig a little bit deeper, what you find out, it's not really a team approach. It's more like one is driving all the decisions and the other one just following, because they know it's just easier, and they don't want to have any major fights or whatever else, right? Um, really, if you want to be successful, you both have to give a little bit and take a little bit when it comes to making the money decisions. How you're going to handle money, how you're going to handle your expenses, big purchases, and savings, and whatever else, right? Um, but yeah, many times it's one's really driving the vehicle and the other one just kind of like following, but
Yep.
not really happy,
Yep.
right? So I just wanted to point that out. Now, you'd say in terms of talking about money, so the money discussion is the elephant in the room. Now we want to talk about it. You say timing is everything. So do you like go for ice cream and then talk about it? Like, give.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. You don't want to get somebody that's hangry. But
No,
really planning this conversation, just like we do when it comes to business, we plan out our conversations, we plan out our team meetings. It's always good to say, hey, I know this is a difficult conversation to have when it comes to money and finances, but we really do need to sit down. I'd like to figure out a time that both of us are calm, whether we have an ice cream in our hand that makes it better, a lazy Sunday, just to sit and, you know, hammer out 15 minutes, even half an hour. Can we commit to a small amount of time just to get an understanding where each other's at? Maybe it's something big that you're trying to approach, but really, and obviously in stressful situations before people go to bed, I always find going to bed and having hard conversations aren't exactly the best things to have. Uh, there's
nor
notes.
and nor first thing in the morning. Like some people need the Java right before they kind of settle down. So
Well,
yeah,
and knowing each other's rhythms and knowing when they're kind of, I guess, almost in their happy place, right? You know, some people are morning people, some people are evening people, but trying to find that sweet spot, whether it's in the middle of the day or late morning or late afternoon, that's for each couple to decide when you guys feel that you're at your best. And we're talking about couples, but you know, it could be just about anything. It could be business partners too at the same time. You know, having presented in front of groups too, and more recently into and saying these things about the discomfort of money. And even though nobody answered, I could see their heads slightly being like, "Yeah, that's an uncomfortable conversation right there," right? So, and already, you know, hearing from some of these groups of the importance of wanting to start this conversation. And again, the conversation when it comes to anything, it's about active listening, right? So, and really, there is an art to it. Everybody, I was thinking to myself, you know, in university, we had a leadership groups, and a very large number of people always have the point of view. We used Robert's rule of order to help make sure that every meeting went smoothly.
what's
Everybody
that?
had
I don't know if I've heard that before.
Robert's rule order is a set of rules when running meetings. A lot of organizations use them. It ensures that everybody has a time to say what they need to say, but also that no one ever gets interrupted, right? So, so maybe that might be one of the recommendations is having somebody third party have the Robert Rule of Order to make sure that you run your meeting correctly, and that you are truly listening to what the other person is saying and kind of being receptive to that conversation. And man, I like to keep things light for myself. I know it does work for a lot of people using humor. Humor is also a cover up for uncomfortable conversations, right?
You're
Maybe that's
right,
why I'm so funny. I just,
because you're always
I,
uncomfortable.
I'm already uncomfortable, so I might as well make it funny.
You
So
need to start wearing briefs then. That's your problem. Or boxers. Get away from the briefs. Start wearing boxers.
don't be so tight.
You can relax.
Loosen up. So that could be it, right? I get. So timing is everything. Finding the right time to have this dialogue with your partner, your business partner, your colleague, things like that, and from there, it's just making sure that you're finding the right calm atmosphere to have this dialogue with them, and that we're using active. There's lots of great articles, lots of great TED Talks about active listening and how to create a better dialogue. Again, having a third party like ourselves, I'm not saying I'm a psychologist in any way, uh, but I've dealt with enough people over my life to have that experience to make sure that I'm able to create a common dialogue between two people to keep it easy and calm without getting into the pointing nature. I don't know if
Let
you've
me
experienced that.
Well, let me ask you this. So, in terms of meeting to have these discussions, are you proposing that they should schedule like a monthly check-in, a quarterly check-in? Uh, like, is that what you're kind of proposing in having these conversations?
For some people, that if you're not comfortable having that dialogue, having shorter, more frequent meetings, if that works for you and your partner, then do that. You know, uh, I would say most couples, relationship therapists would always say a monthly get together would be a huge opportunity for you guys to make sure that the relationship is strong, that you're continuously checking in with each other, and having money as part of that agenda would be I would say high priority, especially if you want to make sure that the relationship itself survives. For you, I don't know what you've experienced as far as like having conversations with clients and stuff like that.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? Is some people have a difficult time with having these conversations one on one. So they do come up when I'm meeting with clients from time to time, and they will ask me a question, and I would say to them like, that's probably more a Dr. Phil question than a Jim question, but based on experience, here's what I know, right? So I do get some of those questions, but I think if they have an advisor, a trusted advisor, as kind of like that sounding board, that third party. Because here's what I have found in the years in working with clients and dealing with money, is sometimes I will hear one of the two make a statement, and I will step in and maybe correct them on what they thought to believe was true and wasn't, and that person is usually the decision maker with the family finances, right? So at times when I can step in and say, well, actually, that's not correct, here's why it's not correct, and here's why you need to consider whatever else, I found that that's almost brought relief to certain couples, right? Especially the one that maybe would sit back and wasn't vocal, was non-confrontational, right? And I'm not doing it to be confrontational. It's just more of, okay, I'll ask them like, why do you believe that, and then provide them with my feedback, right? So that might be something that, as a couple, if you're looking to have those conversations, bring in your advisor and have them be that sounding board,
Yeah,
right? To either verify what you're saying or perhaps correct what you're saying, because again, it might not really be true.
yeah,
Because as we know, Ryan, we're all being bombarded right now with a lot of misinformation. So you should work with a trusted professional to provide you with the actual information that you need, right?
yeah. It's a good point that you say that, because the times that I've run into that, it's because one partner's family members have told them something that they believe to be true, and they kind of stonewall to think that's true, but it's never actually been verified, and they haven't actually brought a proper advisor in to actually understand what the question is and understand what the potential outcome is, because the answer might have been right for a previous like outcome.
Hmm.
It doesn't, one answer doesn't continue to be the right answer going forward, right? So, things change, taxes change, government policies change, all these different factors. Kids come along,
Well,
businesses
people's
get bought.
situation could be at different life stages too, right?
Absolutely.
That's a
This,
big one.
yeah, the same thing that happens to you in your 40s is not the same outcome as somebody in retirement, right? So, and the same as if you're in your 20s. So every life stage comes with different strategies, and that can be true to how people think about money and individuals. So
Yeah, I know.
um,
I know. I've had people come to me like as they're 2 to 5 years away from retirement, saying, "Well, my child did some research and said I shouldn't be in any of these products, and I should do this other thing, right?" And I would look at the recommendation, which was absolutely not suitable for the individual during the stage that they're in. And one of the comments that I would make is, "Listen, you've been 30, 35 years old, but your child has not been 55 or 60 about to retire, right? Different stages." And I will remind them of that. And sometimes they'll think through, like, oh, yeah, I remember what it was like when I was 35 and some of the things that I've been dealing with. And you're absolutely right. This makes more sense in terms of the recommendations that we are making, right? As opposed to what is recommended by someone who's much younger who can't anticipate what retirement is going to be like.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And on a side note, too, I mean, I had a great call today with a client of mine who's been a client of mine for many, many years. And he was just kind of concerned about the markets and whatever else. He speaks with his wife about their finances as well. They both have done very well together. And, he's one of those examples where he's taken the recommendation. He asked me, he said, you must be getting lots of phone calls right now. And I said, not one. He's like, really? I'm like, not one, because the clients that work with us, we put them in guaranteed solutions. We put them in managed portfolios. They're not dealing with that level of volatility that we're seeing in the market. It's the reason why we structured things the way that we have, right? But that client would have been influenced potentially by the younger children who see things differently based on the stage that they're in, right? So just wanted to point that out. So you do say keeping it light. Like how do you keep it light? And should it be kept light, or there has to be a level of seriousness to the conversation, obviously.
yeah. Again, keeping it light again changes for each people. For myself, it's always keeping humor in the mix of the conversation. But again, by putting putting almost an agenda together, and allowing each other to make sure they understand what they want to discuss within that conversation about money. And maybe you only cover one or two of those topics. Again, I've made a list of things that people tend to have arguments about or disagreements, depending on that couple, because it comes up often or comes up in
Mm-hmm.
spades, and you get a somebody who's got four aces up their hand, and there's four of them, four things that they're arguing about. So, but as far as keeping it light, I always tend to remind people, and for myself, you know, you're trying to speak out of kindness. You're trying to speak in a way that you want you want each other to succeed, right? And I find people are always like, I not always, but I find there's too often that people one person needs to be right and one person needs to be wrong. And that the best example I can say is like, 5 plus 5 is 10. Yes,
Right.
that is correct. The answer. That is the correct answer. But, you know, 6 plus 4 is also 10. So we still came to the same solution, the same answer with different solutions there, right? Different equations. So keep that in mind, that no two people are ever correct through it. It's about weeding through and keeping that. And if you don't, especially when you're a couple of business partners, if you don't have a team mentality, then I would challenge whether you're in the right team, right?
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
So, you know, you and I have great conversations. We may not agree with each other. Again, we both use humor within it, but we always I was fine. We always know to seek to understand each other, and at the same
Yes.
time, I know you have my best interest at heart. And as long as I keep that in mind, and the same goes for me and my partner, the same goes for me and my son. As long as each other knows that is the key ultimate thing, is that we both win in the end, that we're a team, then I think the lightheartedness of, again, we can go through breathing activities if you really wanted to help keep it lighthearted and easygoing. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty vast list of things that I've listed that have come up in our conversations, the two of us with clients, as far as, what are some of the common arguments, spending habits can be a big one, understanding, especially couples who are getting into a relationship, understanding each other's debt. I know I've joked about this on a podcast before, that there's dating apps that even ask you what your credit score is, uh,
Right.
to help that. But it's all important conversations that not enough couples, because they don't realize that they're taking on the other person's troubles if they don't fully understand what's going on.
Well,
Um,
let's pause there for a second because I mean, let's talk about this because having debt, saying that one person's taking on the other person's troubles, like there are some people that believe that you shouldn't carry any credit card balance, for example. So someone could be carrying a $500 credit card balance, which in the grand scheme of things really isn't a big deal. But if the partner just simply is totally against any debt, like that could cause a lot of problems. So I think it really is trying to have an understanding of each other. And you and I always come across these couples where you have one is like, I want to pay down the mortgage as quickly as possible. And the other one is like, well, I don't think that really makes sense because we're suffocating because every dime is going against the mortgage because one partner is afraid of the debt and doesn't like debt whatsoever, and the other one is suffering because they're like, we don't go out and have fun because every extra cent that we have is going towards paying down the mortgage, right? So I think there's levels that we have to talk about, right? For me, it's more of a if it's going to put the family in financial jeopardy, that's a different conversation than yeah, I'm charging some stuff on a credit card, paying it off as quickly as possible, not going crazy, not doing anything that's really extreme, right? So I think we have to be careful with that because then you also have the other extreme where you'll have one partner like, we got to save every dollar in a savings account and keep building, building, building because they feel comfortable seeing that savings account balance. And the other partner is like, well, again, I'd like to go on a vacation. It'd be nice, right? And we should maybe invest some of our money so it can grow. But you have the other partner who's like totally afraid of any type of market risk or whatever else, and they're happy with the 1% that they're collecting from a savings account, right? So I think there are extremes and levels we have to worry about.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that comes down to, again, the importance of this conversation that you're having with somebody that you're getting into a partnership with, right? And, financial transparency is a big one of making sure if you're going to go long term with somebody, you better understand fully where they can understand where they stand when it comes to money, their belief systems around money, whether it's goal setting, how to set goals for achieving these things that you guys want to do, both separately and together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's another dialogue is how, when one person makes more than the other, what does that look like when you're in a team environment versus you're an individual, right? Um, there's lots of ideas out there, and it's a matter of not us suggesting one idea is better than the other, but coming to a common ground when you're in a business or a partnership with another individual,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that you guys are on the same page when it comes to these things. And if you're not comfortable, then you bring in somebody to support that dialogue,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
that's why we have our coaching. That's why we talk so openly with people. And if it needs to go further, then there's maybe somebody else that you need to see that is a psychologist to talk deeper about
Hmm.
other things that might have happened with it. So
And that's why, again, going back to the money mindset quiz, I know I'm promoting it, but it really has helped couples truly understand each other's point of view when it comes to money and spending and savings. And there's no cost to going through that questionnaire. So please, if you're having some issues and you're looking and hoping to understand your partner, take the money mindset quiz on our website, tvhfinancial.ca.
yeah, and then the last thing I was going to say about this is just like overall the tips is like, again, making it lighthearted, having that open, honest communication, because if you're not having that transparency with the person that you're with, where does that eventually snowball to, right? The open honesty of sharing common goals, planning financially together, knowing each other's feelings around money, and making sure that you know this honesty. Hopefully, that's the reason why you're with that person, is because you can trust them with money, and making sure that you're making the right, both personal and financial decisions together. And we talk a lot about this is just education. We do often run into a lot of clients, business owners, that one person is the main person that's kind of making the decisions, but making sure that both sides are communicating their thoughts and feelings, so it's a joint venture, instead of somebody heading it all. So
Yeah. So have we talked about tips on resolving those money arguments? We kind of touched on a couple of things,
yeah,
right? Anything else that we want to add to that?
well, again, I said uh, seeking an expert, professional for help. Practicing, as I said, kindness and empathy through that, and really educating, because often it comes down to education. One person feels that they're more educated than the other, and therefore they'll take on that responsibility. But too often, especially when it comes to couples, obviously we know one tends to pass before the other. Being often what I've found so far is often leaving the person who never made any of the financial decisions left holding the bag of, well, it's not until we open up the bag that we realize that it's more of a Pandora's box, and we want to make sure that that's it. And again, celebrate the successes, especially when you guys achieve goals together. That's part of the journey, really. I find is being able to celebrate with somebody that you guys have achieved something together. So
Awesome. So we did touch on improving financial communication, right? Um, I guess one of the things that I would comment on is if you are going to listen to an audiobook or read a book or follow a certain person's podcast as it relates to money, that you both might want to consider following the same people, reading the same books, because you and I, Ryan, and you and I have some different views on things, right? But to your point, we respect each other. We respect that we each have our own opinions and views based on our own experiences, right? And we've never gotten into a fight or an argument over it. It's just like, okay, like I know Jim's, trying to, cover my back, and I know Ryan, you're trying to cover mine, and it's just sharing opinions and again our point of view, and we try to be very empathetic with each other's position. But there are a lot of um, polarizing figures out there, right? That have, like you said, there's the one that we won't name the name, but it's basically my way is the only way, and that's it. And you and I both know that's not true, right? So try to maybe do some joint work. I don't think there's anything wrong with maybe each of them exploring some different philosophies and thought processes when it comes to money, because again they might learn from each other, but just be careful of this is the only way to do it, right? Because if you hear anyone say that, that's a red flag, They're probably just saying that to sell books and whatever else, right?
Yeah. We haven't written any books yet, have we, Jim? We're not selling books here, so.
Well, we do have two ebooks that we're not selling, but they are available for free, right? There's the
Right.
Psychology of Money, the tortoise and hare process, and we also have the Money Mindset ebook,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they're not for sale; they're available to anyone who decides to download them, and we do encourage people to go on our website and read those as well. Anything else you want to kind of add, talk about? Do we miss anything here?
Uh, I can having whether it's you know meeting at least once a year between couples, especially business
Mm,
partners.
yeah,
I would say even challenge year monthly or quarterly even to sum up relationships into quarters. Being able to sit down and talk about what success is, what that kind of things you guys have planned over the next say 3 or 4 months together, how to make sure that the money is going and working for you, not against you. I've seen couples, again, I mentioned this in the having budgeting date nights and vision boards. you know Being able to write those things out
sounds
as
like
to,
fun.
hey, you know hey, I've got a board that me and my partner wrote down together of things that we wanted to accomplish this year, and making sure that we help support each other, because unless you're able to write it down and verbalize it, then you don't know what you're going to be able to achieve or a goal that you're able to reach. And just being able to reflect on that, I think that's really is just challenging each other, being kind throughout it, and really educating yourself and finding the right information that, and you said it yourself, whether it's sharing podcasts together or books and having conversations, or finding two different opposing books and finding a happy medium that you both understand and find your own way. Again, this blog was just simply to bring out ideas and have conversations and start the dialogue uh, between two parties. So
And be empathetic, right? I know, like, if I use my example with Carol, two different backgrounds, financial backgrounds, right? It was a bit of a challenge at first for her to understand why I was the way that I was with my money decisions, and I struggled with, seeing her point of view. But then when we finally made that effort to understand our backgrounds and what led to us kind of developing some of our philosophies around money, it made our marriage so much easier. um you know I taught her to enjoy the money a little bit more. She's taught me to hold on to it a little bit more, and just be empathetic.
yeah,
That's a big one.
and just like we've said many times before, our blog is a reason to start dialogue, and all these ideas for the most part came from the community, and I want to make sure that we're starting a community that shares what works for them and what doesn't work for them. So whether you're listening on whatever listening platform you're listening to, or you're going to our blog, please, I'd love to see the comments of what else has worked for you that I didn't mention, so other
Hmm.
people can share in it. So, yeah.
Okay. So, as a reminder, we're going to be sending out the blog post later this week for our subscribers. However, if you're not a subscriber and you'd like to subscribe, you can go to tvhfinancial.ca, and there will be a pop up that will ask you to sign up for our newsletter, or you can actually just look at our blog post on our main page. YouTube is a big one for us. We definitely have a lot of interest there. So if you're looking for some past episodes, there is a YouTube podcast option. There's also the video option if you want to watch our mugs while we're sharing our ideas and our knowledge with everyone. And again, all of our social media posts. So you can look at all the major platforms and find us there. Finally, if you want to call us, 647-727-4668. Ryan, I'm looking forward to getting this out there so people can really learn from your wisdom in the blog post. And I encourage people to reach out to you if they have any more questions. So once again, have a wonderful afternoon and evening. And until next time, take care.
still